Okay, I think we can maybe make a start. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kieran Tui. I'm a professor for energy, metabolism, and microbiome here at the School of Food Science and Nutrition, the University of Leeds. And it's my great pleasure today to introduce my colleague and friend, Dr. Alan Hernández, to give today's webinar. This webinar series is organized by the Global Food and Environment Institute here at Leeds, and GFEI is an interdisciplinary research community that brings together members from across academia, industry, and public policy to work on integrated challenges in food security and climate change. And so we've a series of these webinars to provide some of the scientific background for these activities, but also highlighting new advances in the area. And today we'd like to talk about NAPIC, which is the National Alternative Protein and Innovation Centre. This is an innovation and knowledge centre set up by the government and launched just before Christmas. It has four main partners: the University of Leeds, the University of Sheffield, Imperial College London, and James Hutton Institute in Scotland. And we work on four main pillars associated with alternative proteins, for all the way from production through the produce or the raw ingredients that grow into alternative proteins, through the processing, the new technologies, but also safety, security, the nutritional implications of transition to an alternative protein future, and also the societal impact. How can we bring consumers with us on this journey to improve population-based diets with alternative proteins and also reduce the climate impact of animal-sourced proteins in the environment? So Dr. Fernandez is a lecturer also here in the School of Food Science and Nutrition, a lecturer in nutrition and global health. He investigates bioactive peptides and proteins, how they impact on human physiology, their ability to reduce oxidative damage, lower cholesterol, their antimicrobial, anti-diabetic effects. He studies markers of type 2 diabetes, inflammation, cancer, and cardiovascular disease. There's a range of different projects currently aligned with NAPIC and the activities of the new centre, including advanced yeast protein alternatives, building UK capability to deliver innovative alternative proteins, a community-led project looking at protein-sensitive agriculture in sub-Saharan Africa, and the development of innovative plant-based burgers with the properties of existing meat-based products. He also does a lot of work on the plant-based egg. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Alan, and afterwards I'll take questions through the written questions through the blog, and I'll discuss them with Alan after the presentation. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Kieran, for the nice presentation. I'm really sorry. First of all, I'm really sorry. I apologize that I'm not able to use my camera. I've been having some issues, but I'm sure that you will enjoy the presentation, and you can see my picture in Zoom. So what's NAPIC? So NAPIC stands for National Alternative Protein Innovation Center. And the vision of this center is helping alternative proteins to go mainstream for a sustainable planet. As Kieran mentioned previously, we have four main partners, which is the University of Leeds leading the Perform pillar. We have the James Hutton Institute leading Produce. Then we have Imperial College London leading the Process pillar. And last but not least, the University of Sheffield leading People. We have different directors, so we can see here in the picture. We have first Professor Anwesha Sarkar, who is in fact the PI of the center. We have Professor Derek Stewart from the Hutton Institute, Professor Karen Polizzi from Imperial College London, and Professor Luis Dai from University of Sheffield. With the center, as you can see here in the slide, we are trying to cover all the different mainstream in the alternative protein sector. So from cultivated meat, followed by precision fermentation, valorizing natural kingdom, different types of protein, and how we can also use all these proteins for new alternative food production systems. Furthermore, we also are trying to understand different protein technologies, equipment, systems, service, feed, food, and ingredients. So we are covering all the different sectors around the alternative proteins. What is the ambition of the center? As we can see here in the map, we are currently a 13 million cohesive entity with more than 150 partners in NAPIC. We have a broad range of stakeholders from industry partners, academic partners, and as we can see also here in this very nice map that we have here, we have different companies with a broad range in the sector. So we have Entocycle, for example, with that work with insect proteins. We have UGS with more plant alternative proteins. We also have the Good Food Institute, the Food Standard Agency, SAMS, Corn, Agri-Food X, etc. So as we can see, we have a broad of different stakeholders around the UK. And what we want to do is really to create an innovation ecosystem with more than 300 industrial and 50 academic partners. And we want to drive the UK to become the global superpower in alternative proteins. And last but not least, one of the main goals of NAPIC is to develop the national protein strategy. What are the wider impacts of NAPIC? Well, first of all, we want to seize this opportunity of economic opportunity to understand how is the alternative protein market nowadays. We know that it's predicted for the next 5 to 6 years to have an increase of £6 billion. And then also in the environmental side of things, we know that nowadays with all these different consumer adoption of alternative proteins, we want to move to the net zero goals. So also how we can measure the environmental impact that alternative proteins have in all the different sectors. Then how the consumption of alternative proteins will help to have a more soft transition to safe and healthy diets with a reduced reliance on meat. It is very important, as we know that nowadays is very suggested that we need to have a more transition to a more safe and plant-based food diet, and have also a societal impact. So the aim of NAPIC is to create a diverse future workforce, more than 250 jobs for a blended protein economy. What activities will NAPIC do to realize our vision? First, address innovation challenges. Second, create a dynamic national knowledge base. Third, prepare a workforce for the future. And fourth, facilitate access to innovation facilities. How we are planning to do this? So as we can see here in the slides, we have different innovation challenges. We have the first one, which is unlocking nature's potential. Second, protein discovery. Third, structuring for functional and nutritional benefits. Fourth, enabling sustainable bioprocessing at scale. Fifth, new metrics and standards for product quality and environment. And sixth, acceptability and accessibility. All these different innovation challenges, they run through the different knowledge pillars that we have. These produce, process, perform, and people. So all these different innovation challenges will be aligned all between the different pillars, so we can address all these different challenges that we have in the alternative protein sector. How we're planning to do this? Well, by accelerating all the industrial adoptions. We know that nowadays we have a lot of different new technologies and new protein ingredients that are appearing in the market. So how we can accelerate industrial enhancement of these adoptions, grow NAPIC as an innovation ecosystem, bring public and private investment is very important as a center. So how we can bring together academia and industry and different types of stakeholders so we can work together and support the alternative protein sector. And last but not least, create licensable patents, spin-outs, joint developments, etc. And we will be doing this through a yearly call that we have with different type of projects. Just here very briefly, we will have a yearly calls in NAPIC, trying to cover different streams of the alternative protein sector, from discovery, innovation, and commercialization. And we will have mainly two types of projects. The first one is frontier interdisciplinary research, and the second one is agile research. And we will discuss this in more depth in the next slides. So the first challenge we have is national knowledge base. So we are planning to create a world-reaching national knowledge base, empowering the 4 pillars with our ever-growing community of partners. We plan to do this by developing the national protein strategy. Second, by also designing unique alternative protein database. This is very important. So how we can, for example, have a database with different protein ingredients, for example, and different techno functionalities. So in this case, if we have any company that is interested in producing a type of food that may have, for example, emulsifying capacity or foaming capacity, how they can access to this unique database and then see the different ingredients that they can use for this purpose. Also create an open source repository for peer review alternative protein papers. This is fantastic because all the different partners in NAPIC will have access to this repository and just look at the different papers on the alternative protein sector. Develop white papers, briefings to transition towards a blended protein economy. This is very important as we want to really push to have a more blended protein economy. Create new standards, tools, and metrics to reduce time to market. This is important for us. We will be working closely with policy and regulatory groups, particularly, for example, with the FSA here in the UK, also with the GFI, the Food Standards of Scotland, among others, to create new standards and metrics. We know that nowadays, particularly this type of novel foods or novel products, they have quite a long time to be ready to launch in the market. So how can we help these companies to make these times faster? And also metrics, if we talk about protein quality, we know that protein quality is measured differently, for example, in comparison with the UK, Europe, Canada, and the USA. So how we can also come up with new metrics and tools to overcome these issues. Prepare a workforce for the future. So NAPIC will champion a future-ready people pipeline via industry and producer-informed bespoke technical and business training, technology dissemination, industrial international secondments, among others. So one of the different plans that we have is the development of training and upskilling modules across all different levels of education, such as apprenticeships, development of micro credentials, new modules, for example, for undergrad and master modules and courses. These will be along, for example, with the GFI, two-layer entrepreneurship. So, for example, if there is like any company that they have ideas or ventures, how we can help them to make this happen. Agriculture ambassador module for startups, small and medium companies, and producers. Last but not least, we are also planning to push forward for secondments between industry, academia, and academia regulator, etc. So how we can enhance these exchanges between different partners in the alternative protein sector, as well produce regulatory workshops. This is particularly linked to my previous comments in terms of the waiting times to release this type of products. We have already different partners that are providing this type of entrepreneurial training, such as IT Food. We have great relationships with Northern Greenstone, with a startup, among others, and also technical training and placements in Oadley, University of Greenwich, Entocycle, Thermoscientific, for example, in terms of extrusion, Siren Australia, these SPG Innovations, among others. Innovation facilities. So NAPIC will curate a database of partners facilities across the UK and globally. This will ease the access for them just to broker all these different types of partnerships. So how we can connect partners with existing expertise and facilities to make things happen. So let's say that we have a company that they want to accelerate the production of their idea that they have, but potentially there is a lack of equipment. So how we can also help them with a scale of facilities to transition by connecting researchers, companies to make things faster. Accelerate pilot to market transition, develop and implement sustainability monitoring tools, and influence further investment in facilities and national infrastructure, which is very important. We know that nowadays in the sector, there is a lot of innovation, but sometimes there is a lack of infrastructure and equipment and expertise. So how we can help to enhance all these connections between partners. We have different partners that will be helping with this. We have, for example, Buehler, we have NISO in the Netherlands, Protein Industries Canada, Sheffield Hallam University, among others. Who we are? So NAPIC is an inter and multidisciplinary team that is spanning all career stages, ready to enable the successful delivery of NAPIC. We have different advisory boards, as you can see here. For example, in my case, I'm leading the International Scientific and Engagement Board. We have also Nick, that he just introduced me. He's leading the science management team. We also have an industry advisory board that is led by Professor Nick Watson. We have the financial sustainability, future leaders, sustainable research, ethics, ADI, etc. We also have a fantastic operational team that is helping us to make all these things happen. And we have, a communications and outreach manager, communications officer, program manager, etc. You can find all the different names of all the people involved in the center in the NAPIC webpage that we will provide the link at the end of the presentation. And please also see the research team, just a few people, because the team is wider. We have a fantastic dream research team with different expertise, just, spanning from different types of expertise, from precision fermentation, plant-based protein extrusion, for example, characterization of proteins, cellular agriculture, primary production, etc. So we are covering all the different aspects of the alternative protein sector, and the idea is to expand all these different expertise. Who are our research partners? We have quite a good amount of different research partners. We can see here partners from the UK that we have seen in the previous one of the first slides, but also we have Aarhus University, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, CSIC. We have also here Watt, UCL, etc. We have a fantastic team of different research partners in the UK and around the world. We also have industry and third sector partners. We can see here some, a few of these partners, which they also cover a wide range of different industries in different sectors. And as well, you can see here, for example, we have Agritech, we have as well Devro, Eat Curious, Entocycle, Evolutor, Ferra, EGS, Good Startup, and many different partners. Some more here, we have Microloop, Ilse, Quorn, Paretos, Ursias L, Saputo, Unilever, etc. How's NAPIC on the global scale? So here in NAPIC, we have a wide range of different international partners. The idea is that we make this team bigger. So we have fantastic relationships with all the different alternative protein centers that are now in the world. So for example, we have a fantastic relationship with Protein Industries Canada. They are leading the protein cluster in Canada. We have as well with the University of Minnesota. We know that they are the house of the Protein Innovation Center of Proteins in the USA. Wageningen as well. Technion. We have MISO in the Netherlands, Massey University, fantastic work they are doing in alternative proteins, Cyro, CSIC, and many others. Well, NAPIC News, we are very pleased. We have a lot of different, we have in a lot of different media with fantastic reviews. It has been very positive. And we are just, very happy that the center is just like taking a fantastic push everywhere. And just for you to see a few of the different news, in this very nice picture, we can see, for example, our four leaders, Professor Anwesha Sarkar, we have as well Karen, we have Stuart, and we also have Luis Dai. So the journey has just started, so please follow us. We have here the NAPIC webpage. We also have a LinkedIn link as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to send an email to the NAPIC email we have here is info@napic.ac.uk. Feel free to join. We are open to have a different range of partners. As you can see in the slides, we have from industry, academia, research institutions, NGOs, regulatory institutions, etc. We are launching the first funding call of Agile projects in March 2025. So just be aware, and just keep following us so you can be, on the track for this first launch that we will have for NAPIC. And that's all for me. Now we will be very happy to answer any questions from the panel. Thank you, Kieran.
Thank you very much, Alan. That was a really good overview. I see there's a few questions from the panel, but maybe just giving a chance for the audience to add some more questions. There are a lot of international activities or similar centers being established. I'm thinking about the Bezos centers, for example. How do you see NAPIC interacting with these going forward to make sure we're not duplicating effort, for example?
Do you want me to take that one, Kieran?
Yeah.
So I think, you know, what we are trying to do as a center, we in fact already have an MOU with the Vesa Center. I think was just published yesterday in the NAPIC media. The idea that we really want to collaborate with them very closely, because I think that's a very good point. So how can we make all these things happen without, you know, overlapping? At certain points, for sure, they will be overlapping in certain topics, possibly, or even potential ideas. But the idea is to have very close relationships with all these different centers, with Bezos, for example, with Karma, with BAT, etc. So how we can come up with this really close relation and communication, so we are aware of all the different things that are going on in the different centers, and then there is no overlapping, and in fact, how we can help each other to make these things happen.
Brilliant, yeah. And I think it's important to emphasize that we have already connections, for example, with the new Bezos Center that opened in Imperial. One of our co-leads is also a co-lead on that project. And we've strong ties with the Bezos Center in Singapore as well, through some of our colleagues here in Leeds. So hopefully we can find very practical ways of making the most of both sets of funding going forward. There's a few questions now. So Li Jing would like to know how we can support international partners who might like to join.
Yes, I can take that, Karen. So, well, first, if you can send us an email, so, you know, we can have a meeting with you, and then we will be so happy to have more international partners in the center. We will have different ways to collaborate as an international partner with NAPIC. One of them could be, for example, secondments. In these yearly calls that we will have, in fact, in March, international partners, they can apply for mobility awards. So let's say that there is, you know, a potential idea with one international institution, and they want to do some work, for example, with Kieran, that he works with the microbiome. So there is, you know, some awards for mobility. It's very important to have, you know, some involvement of the industry in cash or in kind. That would be fantastic, because that's what we were trying to do, you know, to push these interactions between academia and the industry. Another type of engagement that we have with international partners is, for example, we are planning to have every year NAPIC, you know, for example, conference, but also webinars. So how we can, for example, invite international partners with different expertise to these webinars and also in the conferences. So yes, they are different ways that we can interact with international partners. Feel free to drop me a message. I'm leaving the international board, and I will be happy to let you know more of these different and explore, you know, the different ways that we can interact with international partners.
Thank you, Alan. That covers everything, I think. On the another question on a similar line is from Nils Hortzman, and he was asking how industry partners can join. So I think probably the best way to do that is through our website, because we have a sub-page dedicated to industry partnership, and there you can contact directly and start interacting with the people involved in our industrial advisory board. Or you could email directly Nick Watson at School of Food Science and Nutrition here in Leeds, who's the head of our industrial partner board. Okay, so Tim or Linda Sharp raises an interesting question on ultra-processed foods. So this is something that has been in the press a lot recently, and although many of us might not agree with the definition of ultra-processed foods, I don't think there's any getting away from the fact that many of our foods are not supportive of health, that they're low nutrient dense, and that they contain sometimes products or concentrations of nutrients that are not beneficial to the host. On the other side, there are a lot of healthy foods that require food processing. So it might not necessarily be the processing that's the issue. But obviously, when we're talking about new alternative proteins, we have a moral onus to make sure that these new foods are equivalent to the foods that they're replacing in the diet. So thinking about all the beneficial products we get from animal-sourced meat and milk, the vitamins, the minerals, the beneficial fats. Many of these are not supported by even plant-based foods. So we have to be very careful when designing alternatives that we meet also these nutritional requirements or nutritional provision that these animal-based products supply at the population level. Alan, would you like to comment on that a bit?
No, I'm just agree with you. I also think that we should more focus in terms of the composition of foods. So I don't think as well that processing has anything to do with a food to be negative or positive in terms of our health. I think we need to be more looking at the ingredients. So, trying to have new food products, but with less fat, with the sugar, with the less salt, but more fiber, for example. We know that plant proteins, one of the main fantastic ingredients of plant proteins is fiber, and this is linked to positive health impacts, particularly, for example, in terms of the microbiome. So I think it's more, like really focusing on how we can make, twist to this term and trying to make it more in terms of having products that are healthier, not only for human health, but also for the environment, but maybe focusing in producing products that have less fat, less sugar, and less salt.
Yeah, and I think that's it, looking at the nutritional quality rather than the word processing, because that really doesn't make much sense. Every time we take a raw vegetable and process it in our kitchen when we're cooking it, that's food processing.
Exactly.
So it's the notion that has to be really explained a bit better. We've got another question, more technical now, from a master's student, a master's in food processing and engineering, and she's asking what would be required to apply for a PhD under the NAPIC calls that are currently open. And I think anybody with a 2-1 degree and a relevant degree, and if they have a master's in food processing and engineering, obviously very relevant for our topics, should apply. And most of the funding is for UK students, but there might be other options, but mainly they're for UK students, and it'll be on interview, and the best students will be picked for the best for the individual PhD projects. I think that covers it, Alan. Do you?
Yes, yes, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So just to highlight also that we have a website, napic.ac.uk, and we're on LinkedIn, so you can find a lot more information about what we do and what our plans are there. So Dan from the Food Ethics Council is asking about, are we considering the environmental, social, health impacts and not just growth of the sector? And I think that's a very important part, and it's really covered by 2 of our pillars. One is people, obviously, and the other is performance. So we're looking at both how these new alternative protein food products will perform in the human body. So will they have the same equivalent effect as an animal-based alternative? Do they have added health effects? Do they supply the amino acids we need? Do they supply in a final food product, the vitamins and minerals that would be supplied by an animal-based alternative. We're definitely looking at that. We're looking at food allergy, the possibility for new allergies deriving from new proteins. We're looking at traceability and authenticity of the ingredients in these new alternative proteins, and do we need to augment or refocus some of the legislation or the processes around making sure that the ingredients in these new products are exactly what we think they are. We're also working or have plans to work closely both with the consumer and to make sure the foods are acceptable and accessible, with social scientists to make sure that the pricing is right, that we're also providing the health benefit to those who need it most in our communities. And finally, we plan to work with farmers, because changing UK agriculture to a non-animal based protein type of agriculture is going to be challenging. So we have to give farmers the tools, and we have to also give them the opportunities to really change their businesses to take advantage of this new transition to an alternative protein diet. So I hope that's answers your question, Dan.
Yeah, can I just also to add that we also have social scientists, and it's also very important for the center to try to understand the impact that alternative proteins have as well, in the society. So we know that we have all these new trends. So for example, if we talk about these superfoods that I'm not, I don't like the term, but chia, quinoa, etc. So for example, they impact the communities that they are producing them. So how we can also think about fair trade, for example. So I think we will also be covering different social aspects in terms of the alternative protein sector. And with that, we also have experts in that area.
So I think Paul Price, one of the attendees, is saying that from what we're saying, it doesn't appear we're going to make this big move, this big push to changing UK agriculture to reduce its environmental impact, and he finds that disappointing. I think at the moment we've been in action since November 29th. So we're really setting up the scope and the boundaries for this. The people involved in this project have a long history of working both with the food industry, but also with agriculture, and also with different sections of the population, including farmers, and looking at how farmers can best transition and change their businesses to non-animal production systems. And this is important because farmers are not going to do it if it affects their livelihood. So we have to give them alternatives. And part of the work done, especially in the University of Sheffield, will be focusing on how we provide and support farmers in this transition. In terms of changing population-based diets, we all know it is extremely challenging to get people to change their dietary habits. We've been advising people what a healthy diet is for 100 years now, with increasing fruit and veg 5 portions a day, and most of us cannot meet the recommended intake of fruit and vegetables, or even dietary fiber that we need to according to the recommendations. So solutions have to be found with the food industry, where we can reduce the use of animal products, but also increase the nutrient supply in new foods. And part of that is what we will do with NAPIC. So I think we will have impact. We will have impact both on the food production in terms of farmers and agricultural production, but importantly on the offerings to the consumer from the food industry. the food industry is moving. It's a huge beast. It's not something that can happen overnight, and it responds to the consumer. It responds to consumer pull. And that's something we are also working on in NAPIC, in bringing alternative proteins into the mainstream and discovering how we can change or encourage people to not find them as strange foods when they see them in the supermarket. Another way, of course, is health by stealth. So changing the quantities or proportions of animal-based proteins in different ready-made meals, for example, and supplementing with beans or other plant sources, for example. And this is already underway in the supermarkets. You can see it already. If you compare the offerings in the main supermarkets in terms of prepackaged foods 10 or 20 years ago and what they are now, we're in a radically different place. And that is impacting on people's diet, because they're making small changes in their daily shopping, which will impact on their overall dietary intake. And then at the population level, that does impact and turn around into changes in environmental impact. Just moving on. So Linda was saying her point about the ultra-processed foods wasn't really a discussion on the UPF per se, but on the lessons learned, and have there been lessons learned, and how can we assure that we are applying these lessons in NAPIC? And that's a very good and subtle point. I think there's a realization in the food industry in the wake of many crises that you have to study the safety, you have to study the authenticity, the traceability of our food products. You have to study how these foods behave in the human body, and you have to work across the sector in pre-competitive research to look at how, at the population level, this impacts on human health and disease risk. So we're seeing a lot of interest from food industry on not just on the technical aspects of improving or providing new alternative protein products, but also looking at their impact on human health, on the gut microbiota, how these things are processed in the gut. And in fact, most of the projects that we've set up in this area over the last 12 months have been focusing more on the potential impact of these new alternative proteins on gut function in Leeds, for example. So I think we have learned lessons from the whole UPF, or at least the unhealthy high side of the diet, and how we can assure that these new foods coming out will not have some of the same problems, both with the consumer and in terms of population-based health. So Dan is from the Food Ethics Council, is also encouraging people to, especially those working in civil society organizations, to fill up their food issues census. And the site is in the website is in the blog. So I think that's an important aspect. The more information we can get from civil society and get the input of the whole of society, not just segments like farmers or consumers, but the society at large will inform what we're doing, both in this and other projects. So Jinchen Wu is asking, is there small funds for startups? We'll be launching a series of calls in March with different levels of funding, up to about a maximum of 100,000 with 100,000 match funding from industry, but going all the way down to smaller, shorter term projects that are calls which are more suited to SMEs, for example, maybe 10,000, to solve a particular technical problem, with the industry providing in-kind or technical support to the same value. So we will have funding that specifically targets small SMEs and startups to help them get into this area or solve particular technical problems. And importantly, you don't have to do it with one of the 4 partners that are leading NAPIC. You can do it with any UK academic partner that's eligible for UKRI funding, so long as they sign up to be a partner in NAPIC. And this can happen just before you win the award. So to actually apply, you can put in your proposal, and then before you get the award, you join NAPIC. That's how we'll do it. And there's different levels of funding. So those calls will be coming out in March, and we'll be advertising broadly so you can see the details. So Chiara is talking about Tim Spector's work. We know Tim for a long time. He's very good at raising these issues. But the problem is not individual food products. The problem is the idea of ultra-processed foods. Those 3 little letters really don't cover what's wrong with our diet, what's wrong with our food chain, or what's wrong with the offerings coming from industry. It does not take into account the nutrient density that we're talking about a bit earlier on. So the idea that ultra processing itself is the problem is something we have to discuss and get around to the consumer and to scientists alike, that it's not the processing per se, but the nutritional quality of each individual food product that has to be looked at. And that's about composition. It's not about the processing that led to that product getting on the market. Much of the processing is put in place to make sure the product is safe, that it doesn't have food poisoning organisms, that it doesn't have toxins, that it doesn't have chemicals that cause that are harmful. So it's important that we separate that UPF idea is put to sleep, and we get back to really looking at the nutritional quality of individual foods, because it's a very different thing. Okay, Pippa. So Pippa Chapman is wondering whether we're just looking at new proteins or whether we're also looking at animal and plant proteins. We're looking at all alternative proteins. So this would include alternative animal sources, for example, maybe insects or jellyfish or something like that. So new sources of animal proteins, but also and especially looking at plant proteins and maybe forgotten plant proteins as well, or forgotten plant species that we can bring back into our diet. And that has the added value that plant protein often comes with fibers and polyphenols, which we know are very beneficial for diet, for health. And we know also that people are not reaching their daily intake of these compounds. So plant proteins is a particular focus, and we're doing a lot of work on that. One of the main challenges with plant proteins, of course, is its mouthfeel and taste, especially in alternative products like meat alternatives. And that's something we're working on directly in Leeds. So I think, yes, Sharon then is asking whether they will get a copy of the recording. The copy of the recording will be made available. I don't know whether it'll be emailed or it'll be put on the GFEI website, but it will be available. So it will be emailed to everybody. Yeah. Okay, so Andrew Shear is asking about our calls coming out in March. What will the split be between the public funding provided by NAPIC and the private funding provided by the SMEs? In general, we are working on a 50-50 basis, but that 50% from industry or from SMEs can be provided in kind, which means product, new prototypes, maybe time, access to a unique equipment, for example. So there are different options for industry, especially for small industry, because we realize that coming up with hard cash when you're an SME is really challenging. So there are means that smaller companies can get involved in the research directly without putting in the cash. So Sonalika is asking, will NAPIC help put consortia together? The whole purpose of NAPIC is that we manage this funding to accelerate the transition of alternative proteins, and industry is a huge part of this. And I'd include farming communities or farming businesses in industry as well. It's not just the big food companies we're talking about. It's all levels of the private sector. And for example, if a company has a particular technical challenge, they don't know an academic who has a possible solution, they can email us and we can try and find somebody in our network to help them. Our role here is really to manage this agile funding and get it out to UKRI eligible academic and industry partners to advance alternative proteins. So we'll do everything in our power to match up industry and academia to make the best advantage of these funds. And we also do look at feed. So we realize that an important part of the transition to low animal production will also be looking at animal feed, both in terms of ruminants, but also maybe in terms of fish, and how different protein sources can be used to reduce the impact of that production on the climate. Alan, do you have any other comments?
Not really. I think you have covered very well all the aspects.
Okay, so I think that's it. We've come to the end of the questions. I'd like to thank you all very much for attending and for interacting with us. Thank you very much, Alan, for a very good presentation. And I'd like to thank the GFEI for hosting this webinar series. And you can find the different links to the next webinars, etc., on the blog that's just coming up. So thank you all very much, and hopefully see you some way connected with NAPIC in the near future. Bye-bye.
Thank you everyone for joining.